There's a lot of stats that came out from the Cowboys-Giants game, which were obviously unquestionably awesome. But I wanted to focus in on something that Dak Prescott in particular truly excels at. Now, you go back to Dak against the Giants. Sure, I understand what people think about the Giants, but I want to focus on the entirety of the year. Looking at next-gen stats, and Dak is absolutely, unquestionably, the best in the league in man coverage. Most passing yards, most touchdown passes, best passer rating, best completion percentage over expected, best success rate. He's the best against man coverage. So my question for y'all is, and I've got a couple of theories, how do the Cowboys take even further advantage of that by potentially maybe even forcing some man coverage a little bit more? I'm not saying for the game or anyone's going to shift their fundamentals of defense, but potentially forcing a little bit more man coverage.
I guess, that would be are you saying then spread it out all the time?
Just because there's
give them those opportunities to where they can't play in zone?
Because he is so good against man coverage that if you get them to that, clearly we've talked about some of the struggles he's had with the high safeties or whatever kind of zone that you want to break down. Mm-hmm. And so how to force more man, because I think the biggest thing is something that the Cowboys hopefully have turned the corner on, but maybe have not.
You know what really helps there, and maybe that was a distinctive decision that they made this offseason when they said we're going to start forcing it to CeeDee Lamb. How many times do you think a single cornerback can just take him out of a game? I'm going to say zero.
Yeah.
And so and that's where, Kevin, I think that those numbers right there stand out because his numbers are definitely going to CeeDee Lamb. Those numbers are piling up as we speak. So I think that's a huge factor in that he knows that guy can beat one-on-one coverage every time. And I think that adding Brandon Cooks was the hope that he can pull away a safety. That if he starts heading downfield, and we're starting to see it a little more now. Like this last week, they still did do some underneath stuff, but you got the deep pass to Brandon Cooks. And that pulls away a safety, which if you're doing one-on-one coverage against CeeDee Lamb, you're going to lose almost every time. At least 15 times a game, CeeDee Lamb's seeing the ball in his direction.
See, I agree with all of that. And from the 6'8", I thought the wide receivers couldn't get open. Now, there's a couple of things to that. First of all, I guess I'm in the camp now, and there's a few receivers like this where I don't care if CeeDee Lamb is open or not. He's open because he's on the field, and he'll figure out a way. And then the other thing is, we've talked about this many times in the weeks leading up to this. Brandon Cooks has created immense amounts of space, which don't always end in him getting the ball. Here's the issue. If you want to force more man coverage, two of the things you need that are clearly intertwined: a solid running game and play action. Well, clearly, if your run game's not working, it doesn't feel like your play action is going to have much bite to it all, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, it could be run or pass. And you're like, that's fine. Run the ball. Let's see what happens.
And mostly in the NFL right now, a lot of teams want you to run the ball anyway.
For sure.
Because they don't want you to to flip the field on them really quickly, which
right.
Guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, A.J. Brown, Tyreek Hill, the game is set up for those guys can get 40 yards very quickly. And so they do want you to run. And the Cowboys, the fact that it's been ineffective has made that even, less of a factor when it comes to that. So it is kind of amazing that Dak's able to pull off what he is. But because, why? They have a guy that has now become the focal point of their offense. They have you would probably say is that their identity at this point? Is that CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott has become their identity? And
I absolutely
if you're going into a game against the Cowboys, you're like, how do we stop that from beating us? And then you're watching film and you're like, you can't. Good luck. The Cowboys, they have to get their run game to be some sort of productive. But the way that they looked at it when the season started, Kevin, was we want to run the ball to help Dak set up pass. And the way that it's evolved this year is our passing game is going to have to start setting up the running game. And that's what they're starting to try and figure out, but also having their offensive line together, a cohesive unit that plays consistently together is going to be a big factor there.
And I think you're really onto something, because when I went through the numbers is Dak's got about 900 yards, give or take, versus man, versus about 1,500 yards, give or take, versus different versions of zone and all other defenses. So man is still in the minority, and there's a couple
His numbers against the blitz are pretty good too.
Yes, and
that creates, what does that create? Creates more man coverage deep.
Exactly.
And it also pulls somebody away where Dak Prescott does a very good job at figuring out once he sees that it's single high safety coverage. That's one of his best traits.
Yep.
Is he picks and goes, all right, I'm going to a place where I know this route's about to be.
And that makes sense, right? Because they're different tactics, but they both get you to the same spot, whether it's bringing extra people to rush the quarterback or bringing people closer to the line of scrimmage to stop the run. Like, it is the same like general outlay in terms of what's going to happen for your defensive backfield, and Dak is so good at it. Another thing, and I'm curious how people feel about this thus far, is pre-snap motion can also inadvertently cause this sometimes. Like, you could still be lined up in a zone, but sometimes if you can't follow the motion, you could end up getting trapped in more man-on-man situations. And, well, don't mark that, in a football sense. And so I'm curious what people have thought about the pre-snap motion thus far this year, and if they could still do a better job.
It's changed. So I don't know what your numbers are before the bye week and your numbers are after the bye week, but the numbers after the bye week have been significantly different. And Jerry talked about that yesterday with Sean and RJ, as he does every week. Every Tuesday, he hops on with Sean and RJ. And, you know, he keeps saying this, you know, this team's evolving. Steven said that on Monday with us, is that he thinks it's going to continue to evolve. But one of the things that, you know, they started the season, and maybe this is part of a plan, Kevin. I've watched a lot of coaches talk about the mountain, and, you know, we're trying to get to this next step here. You know, we've talked to coaches too that have said we started out really good and never got any better. And maybe this is part of the development and opening up and learning of Mike McCarthy's offense. Is they started out with some simple stuff, adding some developmental things along the way, growing that a little bit, and now motion's becoming more of a part of it. And when you move CeeDee Lamb around, that helps. You know, I know some people are like, he's only good in the slot. He's not. That's a lie.
I disagree with that.
But when you can put your best receiver in the slot and he can murder people, that's really, I'm sorry, my apologies.
Yep.
He can destroy the competition.
Yep.
That's a really positive thing for you.
Now, let's focus in on CeeDee Lamb specifically for just 1 second. Some of these numbers are crazy. So since week 6, CeeDee Lamb has 41 catches, tied with TJ Hawkinson for the most in the league. And Hawkinson has played one more game than CeeDee Lamb. So obviously he's been the best from that perspective.
He's tight end.
Yeah. But also he played an extra game.
Yeah.
But CeeDee Lamb, 617 yards in that span. No other receiver has 500 yards in that span. CeeDee Lamb leads the NFL with 10.3 catches per game and 154.3 yards per game. Now, I want you to think about this. Cowboys have played 9 games this season, right? In the last 4 games, CeeDee Lamb's totals from just those 4 games would have him 11th in the league in catches and 21st in the league in yards. If you just took these last 4 games and he just didn't play the rest of the season, that's incredible. And so when he says he thinks he's the best wide receiver and everything like that, this last month, I understand why you would have that level of confidence.
Yeah, by the way, Michael Gelkin just posted a tweet, Kevin, and said that CeeDee Lamb was widely misheard and misquoted from Sunday.
He said he's one of the ones.
He said,
right?
I'm one of them ones. I'm a top receiver in this game, and it's no question about it. If there is, I'll see y'all again next week. But yeah, I'm one of them ones. And you can't deny that right now. But the other factor that goes into this, and this was something that a couple of years ago they were kind of asking and demanding of the wide receiver room, was that there wasn't an alpha saying, hey, this is how we're going to do things. And it looks like CeeDee Lamb's grown into that role, because if he doesn't say to Mike McCarthy and to the offense and to the team, hey, give me the ball, you know, like not diva style. This is one of the things he's been very adamant is, I didn't go out there and demand that I get more touches, but I am saying I am available. I'm ready to do this stuff if y'all want to put this workload on me. And so that's a significant move in this season that has changed the entire outlook, in my opinion, on what this offense can and is and can be.
And then
if he hadn't done that, Kevin, you might still be sitting here each week going, oh, we're trying to figure out the game plan today. But right now it's like, no, we know we're going to go to CeeDee Lamb.
And just for the record, somebody asked and said, okay, now do the first 5 games. No problem. In the first 5 games, he caught 27 passes on 35 targets. That's a 77% completion percentage when he's targeted, which is insane.
Pretty damn good.
And he had 358 yards, which would have put him on pace for 1,200 yards for the season. Now, clearly he's ahead of that pace, but if the thought was, well, I'm going to zing you with those first 5 games, all right, in the first 5 games, he would have been on pace for 1,200 yards and caught 77% of the balls thrown in his direction. And now it's better.
You want me to add something else that you might like,
Always.
Kevin, to it? According to NBC DFW, one of our good friends over there, he took 2 local families and partnered up with Tom Thumb and the Boys and Girls Club of Greater Dallas on a shopping spree at Tom Thumb near Deep Ellum. Helped them pick everything on their list for a good holiday meal.
It's delightful.
Like,
that is delightful.
That's, and that's, that's one of those things. He's like part of the community too, like thanks for that stuff right there. So yeah, man, like the dude's a solid player and then a good dude off the field too. And
super.
Has the craziest move we've ever seen on draft night when his girlfriend tried to look at his phone. He was like, no, don't ever do that.
Oh, yeah.
That's still my favorite.
I kind of forget about that sometimes.
Yeah, it's still my favorite moment in the history of the draft, I think. Except for the Mel Kiper moment where he said he'd quit and never did.
Was that Jimmy Clausen?
Jimmy Clausen, dude.
Jimmy Clausen.
Kevin, I still, everybody's going to text in, look, it's great to see that Dak Prescott's doing this in the regular season. We know he can do these things. But when you whittle off the best teams in the NFL, can they still get this kind of production? They're going to these numbers that you're pointing out.
That's a season-long.
That's why they went and added to their analytics department. And Mike McCarthy uses those analytics. He really is legitimately using those. And they're going to apply that, and hopefully they can try to force more of those situations. Getting better at the run is going to help. But getting better with the connection between your best receiver and quarterback, that helps huge.
I agree. And if your takeaway is you're like, well, I don't like Dak, or you don't like the positive stats about Dak, fair enough. But the Cowboys just need to figure out how to force more man coverage, and if they can force more man coverage. Because when they do, it's trouble for the opposing team.